The show-stealing aerobatics at this week's Farnborough Air Show remain unashamedly fossil fuel focused. In the giant hallways at this blockbuster annual aviation sector gathering, the industry's stated efforts to go green are becoming ever more apparent, but it's still a long-haul flight to zero emissions. While the pressure is growing on the industry to find answers right now amid a growing climate crisis. At this relatively small stand in Hall 3, British company Hybrid Air Vehicles believe they have an answer to the most pressing of problems: an airship.
Well, Airlander is the world's most efficient large aeroplane, so it's designed to carry big payloads. We start with 10 tons or 100 passengers, take off and land from places away from airports, and to do it with only 10% the emissions of any other aeroplane.
This is no pipe dream. The vehicle already exists in prototype form. It's even flown successful test flights. In fact, one Spanish domestic carrier has just reserved 100 of them, with production due to start this year.
Commercial air travel's emissions could triple by 2050 if they keep growing at their current rate. So, as the aviation sector gets back on its feet, here at the Farnborough Air Show there's a big focus on how to make it greener. One big challenge, though, is that most of the technologies to achieve that goal are still potentially years away from becoming reality, whereas the Airlander is planning its first commercial flight by 2026.
The Airlander derives its lift from a combination of lifting gases, in this case helium, aerodynamic lift, just like an aeroplane, and vectored thrust, similar to a helicopter. Even its engines will soon be completely clean.
So we're working to take Airlander from being very efficient to being actual zero emissions. And our path to that is with electric motors. And Collins Aerospace have been developing what I think will be the first electric motor in service on a large-scale aeroplane. That gets us to a point where the emissions of a flight in Airlander are 1/10 the emissions of anything else. And then by the end of the decade, instead of having 2 of those electric motors, we have 4. And we're at actual zero emissions for carrying 100 passengers.
Even net zero is proving a struggle for many of the big names in global aviation, as HAV's business development manager explains.
Sustainable aircraft fuels are great, and they will develop into a massive industry in their own right, just as they will in other forms of transportation. But most aircraft will not become genuinely low carbon until probably the 2040s timescales. It's going to be tough for the existing manufacturers to adapt existing designs or create new ones until probably earliest the middle of the next decade. For the next decade at least, we're probably the only solution that can offer decarbonisation in the large aircraft space in that time.
But the Airlander is by no means a panacea. With a limited range and a top speed of just 85 kilometres an hour, around 1/10 of the speed of conventional planes. But it looks set to be flying passengers in European skies in just a few years' time, which means low-carbon commercial air travel is about to become a reality. Guy Hedison, CGTN, Farnborough.